I am working with the women's ministry at the church that I attend, as well as with the youth ministry, doing things such as leading kids to understand how they play an important role in evangelism, as well as the adults. Working with the women on total lifestyle enhancement, dealing with being comfortable with them in the skin that they're in, being whatever it is that they are, being comfortable with that, being excited about that, being over the top and telling everybody else about whatever it is that they are. And then I've got, as a side to that, another business, which is why I'm not in the practice of law now, another business that I've developed. Some negative things happened at about 1 o'clock on Friday afternoon. And so I was a bit taken aback. But by 5 o'clock that afternoon, I had business plan, business partners, and we were moving forward. And by a week from there, we had all of our business, our corporate stuff taken care of. And now I'm doing inspirational and motivational speaking.
Okay, now great. What type of motivating speaking or it is that you're doing?
The one of the first ones I'm doing is leading actually in the domestic violence realm with women. I wrote a book called The Epidemic of the Silent Church, and it specifically deals with domestic violence and church culture because...
And we will show that book at the end of the broadcast, okay? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Of all of the things that we hear and that we're comfortable with in church, we talk about stewardship, we talk about witnessing, we talk about discipleship, evangelism, we go and get a word and we run home and we feel really good. There is a segment of our population that is being overlooked and missed.
Yes.
That is the segment that is either victims, batterers, or bystanders in this whole domestic violence thing. And the reason that the book is called The Epidemic is, by definition, an epidemic is anything that is left uninoculated, untreated, unaccounted for, unattended to. And so this domestic violence that exists in the world actually exists in the church because the people that are in the world come to church every Sunday.
Yes.
And they're sitting there in the congregations begging for someone to speak to them or notice them or say something about them. And unfortunately, we as church leaders or the people who are in leadership over these people that come in these congregations are uncomfortable with addressing it for any number of reasons. And so I have been blessed by God with researchability, with credibility by that law school degree, and with integrity with the ministerial license to be able to go out and talk to people, not just women, because contrary to what a lot of people think, it's not just women who are victims of domestic violence. Men are as well. They don't pronounce it as readily. We don't hear about it as often, but there are men sitting in church congregations, just as there are men in corporate America who are being battered by their spouses, being battered by their loved ones, being battered by a woman. And so what I've been able to do as a result of research and as a result of connections and being able to be in the right place at the right time because God ordained it to be so, able to talk about what happens if we don't address it. Too many times we talk about the positive thing, what happens if we do? Well, what happens if we don't is we begin to raise children who perpetuate what they've lived. I was younger. My father was in the Navy, and we would go to the Navy hospital. And I remember a plaque on the wall that said, "Children learn what they lived."
Yeah.
For some reason, God enabled me to remember that as I was writing this book. And one of the chapters in the book is called "Children Learn What They Live." So if a child lives with a whole lot of negativity, then that's what they do with their friendship circles. If a child lives in a home where there's a lot of violence, well, they don't learn how to do conflict resolution except for using violence. And so I felt like, and God said so, it was important for me to set out to educate and empower leaders so that they can address these people, not just the victims of domestic violence, but address and challenge the batterers and challenge the bystanders. And the bystanders, all of us have been sitting next to in church every Sunday. Someone who fits one of those categories. And we don't know it because we don't pay attention. Because if we don't begin to pay attention to the people that we're around, then we will notice differences in behavior, differences in mannerisms, differences in the way they come in or the way they sit or the way they look, or that they're looking in the same place all the time. I wonder if they're looking at the person who is the batterer, who is giving them eye contact saying, "You better not." And so those people are in church with us every Sunday.
Now that's good. I put up this report, and the report I pulled up is from NCADV, National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And I want to read a couple of statistics from this report that I pulled off the internet. I mentioned this at the beginning of the broadcast. 1 in every 4 women will experience domestic violence in her lifetime. Accurate?
Accurate.
And an estimated of 1.3 million women are victims of physical assault by an intimate partner each year. Staggering, isn't it? 85% domestic violence victims are women. Now, I think God was really leading me up to this. And, you know, we talked earlier this week God did with me a certain way. And as I was praying about this broadcast, domestic violence, God allowed me to experience it with 3 of my friends this past couple weekends. So it's almost that God was giving this approval, a stamp of approval of this. But in the church, sitting right next to me, what is the classic, one of their classic signs, or the sign of someone being abused in domestic violence?
To define a classic sign is difficult, but one of the initial things that happens is the abuser, the batterer, seeks first to alienate the person that they're victimizing. Mm-hmm. So when you find a person that you've had a relationship with and you've been able to call them on the phone or go out with them or do those kind of social things, and all of a sudden that changes for no reason, then we need to pay attention. Okay. Those are the things that we overlook. And the person who's being abused is crying out to us and saying things like, I know you know that I'm not accustomed to not going with you. I know you know that I always talk to you on the phone. I know you know there's something different. Can you please say something? Can you please help me? Because what happens is they're afraid to say something because that batterer has said, nobody can know. You better not tell them. And if you do, then I will. Or if I think you will, then I will. And so that person is afraid, but we have to pay attention to those subtle signs. So whether it's a person who was formerly outgoing, a person who was formerly much more social, and they become withdrawn, we need to pay attention as bystanders, friends, loved ones, and Christians. Okay. We have to pay attention to the people we have relationship with, because those are the only people we can affect anyway, the ones we have relationship with. So it's not about you sit next to this person in church on Sunday. It's not about the people all the way over there. It's about the ones that are right there with you. Just as in our families, it's not about everybody else's family. It's about your family. So we can start to pay attention to our families, to the people that sit on our road, to the people that work in our office, to the people that sit on the bus in the area near us. When we can start paying attention